Welcome to the Building Doors Podcast, where we're not just pushing for opportunities for women's voices to be heard, we're creating them. I'm Christy Harst, voiceover actor and creator of the Building Doors campaign. Join us as we amplify voices, break barriers, and build doors together. Welcome to the Building Doors Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Harst, and today we are talking with someone who knows his way around a mic and the business behind it. Jason Veazey. It's so easy to remember Jason Veazey. Has spent nearly 3 decades in broadcast media, working everywhere from Texas and DC to New York and now Phoenix, where he serves as the creative director and the guy who actually hires voice actors. He's also a full-time voice actor himself. He's represented by CESD in New York, voicing everything from commercials to promos and imaging, and making some big moves into trailers and TV affiliate work. What? As an Army veteran, thank you for your service, sir, a proud girl dad, and a creative leader, Jason brings a unique perspective on what it takes to succeed behind the mic and why he's here today, which is what he's seen when it comes to women breaking through in traditionally male-dominated genres. Let's dive in. Welcome.
Hey, Christy. Thanks for having me on. It's so good to catch up with you. It's been a minute since I saw you in person. I think in Atlanta back in March. So it's good to see you again.
Yeah, we first met at VoiceOver Atlanta. And for those listening who don't know, VoiceOver Atlanta is one of, if not the largest conferences for people in the voiceover industry. And Jason and I just happened to be standing next to one another and then started talking to one another. And he started giving me a little insight about him being a voice seeker and women and male-dominated genres. I said, you're going to be on our podcast for sure. So I'm so grateful that you took time out today to speak with us. And I want to dive in with the first question, so everybody gets to know you. You have had a really rich career in voiceover and on the other side, right? So hiring voice actors. Yeah. You're in a position to shape audiences here, and that's a big deal. Tell everyone exactly what you do.
So, day job, creative director at radio stations. We have a sports and we have a news format, and we also have an ESPN affiliate. So my job is doing everything to elevate our brand. You know, I want people that are listening to us to engage with us even more. So that's what radio imaging does, right? It tells you what's coming up. It tells you what to expect. It tells you what you're getting when you're here. And it even tells you the things that you didn't know that you were getting. Like all of a sudden, you know, the coach of the local football team decides that he's going to call in, and we've got him on hold right now. You know, we'll do something like that. The typical stuff, podcasts and contests and everything else that's radio stations and broadcasters do. We do all that as well. So every one of those needs a nice professional open, so it sounds cool when we're starting off. That it vets the program to the listener. They're like, oh, these guys are legit. They mean business. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Then there's also all of the day-to-day stuff that goes on, like we have to advance all of these things that are moving in linear time and make sure that you know that if you're listening in the morning, make sure you listen when you're coming home because we've got this other thing going on. That's the main responsibility of it. It's like an in-house marketing specialist for our specific brands. And we're marketing to the people we have. We want to engage them even more. And that's my job, to really build and strengthen that engagement and then keep it going. So I have to keep an eye on market trends, and I have to keep an eye and an ear on what's happening these days. This week, it's been the phrase touch grass, go touch grass. I've been talking with my kids about it. People say it a lot. We have listeners from in their 60s and 70s all the way down into their teens. So we have to be on with the lingo. So it's funny. We had a little discussion about that phrase, go touch grass. And how could you relate that to football? And how could you relate that to sports? And how could you relate that to life right now? Because you're on the internet. There's so much noise out there. Sports is a great escape from it. Wouldn't we agree? I mean,
yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And for those listening and watching, what does touch? I mean, explain what go touch.
Yeah,
grass
like we boiled it down to touch grass, go touch grass. Boiled it down to be like escape the noise, escape those little echo chambers you're in, escape all of that stuff that just sucks you in, and all of a sudden you realize you've spent 15 minutes scrolling on Twitter and now you've missed your bus. So it's like, go touch grass, like get out there in nature, relax. Like even if you can do it barefoot, that's even the best. As everyone's telling me that going out and taking your shoes off and walking around in grass is like the best way to sort of reconnect with the world. So that's what go touch grass means to us. It's like reconnect with what matters, get away from the noise. And some of the things that could matter to you are your sports fandom or the fact that you love the local restaurants or whatever it is like that. So go touch grass. Yeah, like get off the internet, connect with what's real out there, connect with the real world. And I would say if you live in a city, go touch bricks. So you're walking down the street in Brooklyn, touch a brick wall somewhere, just do that. Don't touch the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Sidewalks are full of chewed up gum that people just drop there. So don't touch the sidewalk. Touch the brick wall. Yeah.
So because you clearly have what is that cliched statement, your finger on the pulse of, what's happening. When did you first start to notice a shift or quite frankly, even a gap in how women's voices were being represented in certain genres? You and I kind of touched on that at VOATL, so I'd like to hear more.
It definitely started to hit me as to, okay, we have a lot of women who are interacting and engaging with these typically male-dominated formats that we had on the radio, like sports and news. Social media really brought that to my attention. And when it really started, I would say like 2008, 2009, right around there. I started to just look at the comments every now and then, and sometimes I would say, that's the worst thing you could do because the real is out there in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. But also just the sheer amount of women that were engaging with these like brands that we thought we only had male listeners. And all of a sudden we're on social media and we see there are 40 or 50 women commenting on yesterday's game out of 200 people here. And that's pretty impressive. So that sort of turned my head around and I was like, wow, we cannot just sit here and go, it's only for the guys, because it's definitely not. Also at the same time, I started to talk to some of those women, at events and everything else. And some of them would say the funniest things to me, like, well, I listen because I want to see what it's like when it's just a bunch of guys around. And I want to know what that's like I'm listening in on a conversation. And others would say, yeah, it's all about the teams. They're as so into it as I am. And they go to every game and they've got season tickets. And these are the things that really, it turned my head around. It's like so many women have season tickets. So many women are engaging with sports, going to the games and everything else. And even on the news side, we thought it was really, really, really heavy in men and women care about what goes on in their community. Women are the ones that take the kids to the school and they go and, on election day, they see the signs and it starts to all like, okay, what's going on here? What am I voting for? This Proposition 321, what is it? And so the same thing in social media, we started to see a lot more women engaging with the brand. So that really turned my head around 08, 09. And then as far as on the air, there are quite a few women who really do well in imaging on the radio, the voices, like I could say, Ann DeWig is a female creative director and voice actor, and she's been on a lot of big stations. I actually had her on one of my stations. I had the pleasure of working with her for a couple of years. And, she had the same job as I do, creating the stuff and voicing the stuff. And it was for rock stations and for a lot of alternative stations. But you can't tell me that someone that's good at their job couldn't do, the same thing just for a different focus and a different format. So then I started like the internet again. Thank you, internet. You could listen to stations across the country. And I started to listening to stations across the country, 09, 2010. And I was like, yeah, they have a couple of female voices on some of these stations that are all about news and talk. And even if there were a male and a female voice, the one thing you got to create to get that attention is disruption. You have to disrupt the norm if you want to get that attention. And nowadays, it's so much more important because we live in the shortest attention span in the universe so far, that getting that attention is so much more important. So the disruption, yes, like someone's listening, they expect to just hear, coming up next on the news. And they hear a woman say pleasantly and, with some personality, coming up next on the news. Bad female impressions. But
that's awesome.
It gives you that disruption that, oh, wait a second, this is not the norm. This is something different. This is not what I expected. So,
and to your point, I have a client who I connected with via LinkedIn, and all he does are videos for blue collar trades. So think dump truck companies, garbage collection, pallet collection, all of this stuff, construction companies. And what's interesting is he reached out for me to start doing scratch tracks for him. So what he does is he creates the short video, presents it to the client, and he used to be using his voice to present to the client to say, look, I can do this for you. Let's sign on the dotted line. Let me do this for you. Then he started using my voice. And so here's what's so interesting. It goes directly to what you just said, that they consider a woman's voice to be the shocking new thing to get people's attention, because for so long they've been using that grisly low-toned voice. And so to hear a woman on these spots, it's like, whoa, that's so unique. That's so different. And I think there's a huge opportunity for women in spaces like that to kind of introduce their services and get more work and introduce women as a way to advance a brand's bottom line.
That makes perfect sense, because you said disruption, and that's exactly what that is. They're used to hearing, you want to learn how to drive this dump truck? I'll show you how to drive this dump truck. You put it in gear, but a woman saying those things, that really grabs your attention, because it is just not what you're expecting. It's not what anyone's expecting with that. You see the background. It's like, I love those fun juxtapositions of things where, like, I don't watch wrestling a lot, but I watched one wrestling match one night because it just was on. I think I was watching The Wheel, and it just came on afterwards, after dinner or whatever, cocktail. And then this wrestler, this gigantic wrestler, comes out to this K-pop song. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, look at that. This dude doesn't look anything like that, but he's coming out to this K-pop song. And I was like, yeah, like, that is just so cool, because it gives that layer of, now you don't know what to expect. You can't calculate what's coming up next. You don't know what's going to happen next, because here's this guy that looks like he just, got off a 12-hour shift at the foundry, and his hair's all slicked back, and it's, he's all sweaty, and he's got this tank top on, and he's muscular, and he's got this K-pop song, and he's like bopping along to it. So yeah, I love those.
And look, and then we're talking about it now.
Yeah, I love those.
You remembered it.
Those things that just don't seem to make sense, but then they do. They just connect. So I love that. Yeah.
And you have such a unique seat at the table, because you sit on both sides. You're a voice actor and you're a voice seeker. You're someone who hires voice actors. And as someone who hires talent and is a talent, when you're casting or directing, what makes a woman's voice stand out to you in the spaces that still have male heavy dominance, like sports, like promo, like news? What makes a woman's voice stand out?
Yeah, there's that quality that a woman can bring to it. I would say that there's some recent promos that I've watched that have been voiced by women. And I think the first time it landed with me, I think I was watching a CBS broadcast of an NFL game on a Sunday, and there was a female voice on it. And after listening for a minute or two, I was pretty sure, it was more like a couple seconds, but I was pretty sure it was Angela Bassett. And Angela Bassett has this quality of, like, the lioness that, like, is the protector, and you do not F with, and you have this instant authority and command, and really brought that. And I thought to myself, looking back on that, yeah, that's what it was. And that's what people for so long were casting for just the male voices. They were looking for those qualities, that command, that sort of like instant assertiveness. But a female's voice can have that too. My mother was instant command and instant assertiveness. I mean, she's about 5'6", and she was an accountant. And before that, she was a choir director for a Baptist church. But when it was on the line, and when she had to convey a message that really needed to hit home, just the intensity that she would bring, she didn't even have to raise her voice. It'd be like, if you don't get inside this house right now, there's going to be hell to pay for you. Oh,
I've got it down to a look.
Yeah.
I've got it down to a look with my kids. I don't even have to say anything. They know the look.
Yeah. That's the same thing that you can bring in that vocal quality. On the other side of that, I'm talking about the juxtaposition again. I should not be using that word. That's a hard one to say. It's sort of like that, the opposites attract. When you hear this sort of bubbly, bright delivery against something that's just gritty visually, there's a neatness to that too. There's a disruption there. There's oh, wow. Like, you're talking about this mud and dirt and grass flying everywhere and people and sweat and blood. And this sweet, bright voice is telling me about what I'm seeing and what I'm going to see. That to me that's disruption. That's attention. That's like bringing me into this. That's drawing me into this. Because have you ever had a taco in your life? Yes, we've all had a taco.
All right, of course.
So
Yeah.
what if you have a taco and you've got meat, which is savory, and then you've got onions that are savory, and then you've got cilantro that's savory, and you're biting and you're chewing, yeah, it's pretty good. But then you put pickled sweet onions on top of it. Now all of a sudden, you've got this new set of flavors that's coming at you. And it's made each bite of this thing so much more interesting and so much better because you have all this savory, but then you have this little bit of sweet there. It's just balancing things out and it's just bringing it along. So if you have all of these notes that are just hard, go onto a streaming platform like Paramount Plus and just hover over a movie. It'll play you the original trailer, like an 80s or a 90s movie. It'll play you the original trailer most of the time. And there was a time when all of those movie trailers were very much like, not only just in a world where Christy Harst does a podcast.
Do it.
Like that sort of thing. But then also every now and then, they're telling a story about all this stuff. And when a woman's voice comes on and starts telling that story, there's just another inflection that a woman can really pull off more naturally than a guy can. Like some of the things that are like just the mom vibes, but also when it gets to that point where things have to get serious and get real, there's another type of mom vibes that come in, right? So women can bring that. And, it's cool when it comes through like the Angela Bassett style, but I also like that, I'm not expecting this. It's a bubbly voice and it's against this backdrop of all of these visuals that are very, intense and gritty and just dirty because it's sports. And, like I said, the blood, the sweat, the grass and everything else. So that I think I see it more and more now than I did back in, 15 years ago. And it's still a little bit here and there, but it really catches my attention. Like if you're a person living life in 2025, we're all kind of busy. If you're in your kitchen and you're, making breakfast while the football pregame is on, you're making breakfast and maybe you're not paying attention to the screen, but then you hear this woman's voice that says coming up. All of a sudden you're hearing a voice that is different from all of these male commentators. All of a sudden that gets your attention. So just that little basic thing. If I'm casting on who's going to get the attention, I'm thinking about what's the show sound like versus what does this sound like? And the show sounds like all dudes. If I'm going to get attention, I'm either going to need a drastically different voice of some sort, or I'm going to need some sort of big sound effect or something. Yeah. The woman's voice would be drastically different, wouldn't it? Against all the dudes.
Right. But you are very okay. So let's get into the details here. So I agree with you 100%, obviously, but there are a lot of brands who don't see it that way. There are a lot of brands who are not willing to venture out and try a woman's voice because this is just always the way it's been done. And they don't want to ruin any potential profit margins. They don't want to upset anything. They want to keep it as status quo. So, for example, you said you've heard a woman's voice watching an NFL game. Absolutely, I have too. Unfortunately, 85% of all of the ads during this last Super Bowl were voiced by men. And when you break it down per genre of male-dominated genres like tech, alcohol, insurance, automobile, the highest percentage was 12% voiced by women. So yes, we are hearing more women. It's great. We're hearing more women in these spaces here and there. But by and large, they're not existent. They don't exist. And to your point that you just made, that using a woman's voice can grab attention. It's something different. It's something unexpected. Why aren't more brands doing it? Do you have any experience when working with your clients that they request all male? Have you ever said to them, hey, how about I throw in a few females just to see what it sounds like? Or do you just do it? Where is the puzzle not fitting together? Because to me, it just makes sense. Yeah. But for some reason, it's not happening.
Yeah, that's an amazing statistic that you said, 85%, like that. that's something that, wow, that's something that's really just eye-opening because we all know that it's not 85% dudes watching the games. We all know that it's everybody watching those games. So, yeah.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's dig in even deeper to that point. Not only is it not just men watching, but women possess 83% of the global purchasing power worldwide. So if you're advertising said product, it is more than likely that the woman is making the decision to purchase said product.
And
okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're
on.
very true. I mean, you're talking about like who controls the ultimate purse strings in the household. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a bullseye right there from you, for sure. And we do talk about that just on my local level here in Phoenix, just on the local level. And even with the company that I work for as a whole, which has markets in the Western United States, we do talk about the amount of, female engagement versus male engagement. We talk about things like that. And we can look at some statistics that we get in-house. Like if we do a contest, we can see the demographics of the people who enter the contest, just as far as gathering some data points. And we do see more and more that, we do have more female engagement. So I do think that drives our hope to have more inclusion forward. But also just speaking on the point of, the 85%, and do we talk about these things? There have been specific instances where a client I know will come in and they say, well, we want, a guy that sounds like this person. And, well, we do have a few different options that get pretty close to the voice match or whatever. They want somebody that sounds like John Hamm or whatever. But when I look at the script and I think to myself, what would be the other option? And that's how I think. I think, all right, what's the opposite of John Hamm? Because if John Hamm's saying, there's nothing like Mercedes-Benz. It's the luxury. You feel it on your butt cheeks when you sit down on the leather.
You kind of sound like him, Jason.
That's a problem because no one will cast me because they'll want to cast John Hamm instead.
Really? You sound that first line, especially, you sounded just like him.
I can voice match a few people. And if you really want to go there, we can get into it at another time. Maybe that's for another podcast.
I hear
but
it.
Like the thing with the opposite, the thing with, what's the opposite of this? I always try to present that option. And if sometimes the script just doesn't jibe with that. During COVID, there was a lot of that. In these unprecedented times, life is, not normal and everything else. And, the opposite of that would be, hey, in these unprecedented times, nothing's normal. It's crazy out there. We couldn't do that. We can't present that to a client because then we'd look at me and go, is this guy serious? This guy, you pay this guy. So that's where the opposite doesn't work. But I always try to present the opposite. And, we have some female voice talent at this radio station that I work at, that I get all the time to come in and read the opposite for something I'm casting for, something I'm creating. And I never know until I hear it. So I got to hear it no matter what. I got to hear it. And I would encourage anyone out there, if you're casting for something and you really want to bring some options, if it works, like I mentioned earlier in my example, sometimes it doesn't work. But if it works, get that opposite in there. And if the opposite is the voice of a woman, especially for those tough blue collar things, like, your paving company or whatever, try it, pitch it, just pitch it, try it, pitch it. You'll be surprised at what you come up with and the things that you discover while you're doing that. Even if it doesn't specifically work out for that client, you'll make some discoveries that you just weren't prepared for, like I did when I started looking at, all right, how does this beer commercial we're getting work with a woman's voice? Or how does this beer commercial we're getting work with a man's voice that's not what they're casting for? Just all of those things. But typically, really the opposite. It just gives you some eye-opening options, and it gives you some discoveries into things that you just didn't think about before. I hear it sometimes that people are trying things, especially on the internet. You're watching YouTube, and all of a sudden one of those pre-roll commercials comes in, and they take a lot more risks out there because the stakes aren't quite as high as they are on broadcast TV. And that's my point. It took me a while to work back to it. I think that because the stakes are so high in the Super Bowl commercials, we're talking specifically in those type of things. I think because the stakes are so high, I think, it's just my observation, and it's a bit of speculation too. I think the corner suite gets together, and I think the corner suite makes some of these deals on the golf course, and I think the corner suite gets together and makes some of these deals outside of the building, and it's built on relationships and it's built on everything else. And some of it is probably due to the writing, but these relationships are probably what make these buys happen. So
So basically, what you just said, if you read between the lines, is there's a boys' club.
there's got to be a boys club out there, and when you look at the CEOs of corporations, when you look at the chief marketing officers and everybody else, that's running these things, you do see some women nowadays where you wouldn't before, especially on the marketing side. But yeah, there's not as many female CEOs of the big Super Bowl advertising brands. There's not as many female CEOs of those companies. So yeah, and who's to say that a man can't be open to those conversations, and who's to say that a man can't, flip that switch in his mind and say, yeah, you know what, we do need to start considering, would a female voice work for this thing where it's always been a male's voice? The Budweiser commercial, like the Christmas Budweiser commercial, with the Clydesdales
It always has
and everything.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that work? Why couldn't it be Mrs. Claus instead of Santa? I mean, just really think about it.
Jason, I think you're unique. I think that you are unique in how you think, because I've been doing the Building Doors campaign for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. I have about 3 to 4 Zoom calls a week with advertising, marketing, brands, executives within brands. And why not? Costs a lot of money to take the risk on why not. And what's interesting is you brought up, I have many questions from your last comments, but one is, have you ever done A/B testing to see the same ad with a man versus a woman to see? Have you ever done that? Is that something that you guys would ever consider if you have done? And then number two, to your point of that the majority of the decision makers are typically middle-aged white men. Many of them make decisions on golf courses and after hours with a drink. But there are a few women, right? You see a few women. To that point about the few women, I have been fortunate enough to meet in person or speak to some of those women, those few women in those positions. And what I find absolutely fascinating is that I think they are my person. I think, oh yes, I'm going to go up there and pitch Building Doors and we're going to take the world on. It's going to be awesome. And in fact, it's quite the opposite. So I was at an in-person event in New York, and it was full of powerful women in the sports industry. And it just so happens that I had the opportunity to meet face-to-face and pitch a top female executive at a major sports network. And so I went up, I did my thing. I did the thing that I had done 10 times before I walked up to her. And every person that I had done it to 10 times before wouldn't even let me get through my pitch. They're like, oh yeah, I totally get it. You need to talk to this person, this person. Oh my God, that's so awesome. Yeah, I totally get what you're doing. You need to talk to this person, this person. I get up to this woman and she looks at me like I have snakes coming out of my head. And she's like, so, I basically got the cold shoulder. And what I realized after talking with her and several women like her is this. Those poor women are in a position where they can't rock the boat or they'll lose their job. They are in a position where they are holding on tightly just to the fact that they made it where they are. And if they do anything to upset that imbalance, they know that they'll suffer. And so they have to play the status quo. And I feel for them because they've worked so hard to get to where they are, and they probably do want to make a difference, but they have to answer to someone else. They have to answer to that guy on the golf course, that guy at the bar after hours. And so there's this plateau, right? There's only so much that somebody can do.
Well,
okay, so that was my story. And then I want to go back to A/B testing.
That's an interesting, because you've been in the space there where I haven't, and you've experienced something that I haven't. And that's an interesting observation that you've got there, because I never would have known that, sort of thing. And I would have assumed very different, actually, if I'm assuming. But like I said before, I'm speculating on some stuff, but I feel like it's an educated guess on, the boardrooms making the decisions and the corner suites making the decisions. I'm lucky.
Oh no, you're right.
I'm lucky that I work for a company like that. We have a female president. We have female market managers. We have a female program directors in the building. The program directors of both the stations that are on the air live are women. in my building. And I work with them all the time, and we just vibe on the work. We just vibe on the work together, and it makes no difference that they're women. Yeah. Okay. Give people a chance. If you're watching this, give people a chance out there. Don't just shut people off because of, the box they check on their driver's license. So with A/B testing, we've done it a few times. I've done it a few times personally with just local things, just to say, hey, as an option, would we want to go for this? And sometimes what we do is when we're doing an outdoor campaign or like a broadcast campaign that we are buying ad time for one of the radio stations on a local TV station or something, just to test how does that commercial sound on the TV, I have that option in there as well. So I have a male voice, I have a female voice. So we see, no matter what the brand is, just so we can see which one is which. Sometimes someone will come through and request someone specifically because they're also an on-air personality. So that right there, and I can speak about women endorsing products pretty extensively because we have quite a bit of that going on in Phoenix. I would say that they're very successful when it comes to that stuff, and that's not to be discounted because endorsements are engagement on a level that just you can't get any tighter with anything. Like if someone that you listen to or watch on the TV radio is telling you about these amazing windows that they have on their house,
take my money.
They better not be lying to me, and they're local and they're real. So that really brings it. That really brings it. But we have done the A/B testing before, and until people hear it, they just don't even know. They don't even know. And that goes with every voice, but especially with, the traditional stuff where you think, okay, it's a local casino. They're doing an appearance for local sports personalities, and we want to bring, some excitement to it. How do we do that? Well, we're going to talk about the benefits of being there in person. We're going to talk about how you can, follow along with the games with these guys that you listen to and watch on YouTube all the time, buddy. But also, how am I going to grab the attention of someone when I'm just using one of the five senses? I just got their ears. When it's not on YouTube, when it's just on the radio, or even when it is on YouTube or the TV. Like I said about being being busy earlier, if I'm standing there and I'm making dinner or breakfast or whatever, and I'm not looking at the TV, but the TV's on, I need a voiceover so that I can connect with what's going on. Because if you're just putting pretty pictures up there and you're playing music, and I'm over here like chopping up my onions or whatever, you missed me. You missed me. You missed a chance to get me because you don't have a voiceover in your doggone screen. You put it in your spot, So that disruption from the A/B thing and that sort of option that people, they don't know until they hear it. You'd be surprised how many people have never heard options presented before and just sort of get served up what they can. Sometimes that's due to budgets, and that's a real thing in the world. Especially with local media.
Yeah.
But more and more, I am hearing more TV stations, radio stations for their station voices. If they don't just have one voice, they'll have a male and a female voice, which is pretty cool to hear because it also sort of sets up that listeners, as much as it's still going on, there is also a safe, nice landing spot for a certain type of voice to sort of bring through a certain type of promotion for something. If we're talking about a race to raise money for breast cancer, and you hear a woman do that spot and you hear a man do that spot, I think 9 times out of 10 people would sort of more feels towards the woman, right? Because a woman can experience these things, maybe has experienced these things, maybe is speaking from the experience, where a guy is experiencing these things and maybe has, but also as a third party to it and not as a, like a first person experience. So there's certain instances where it really just drives it home. As much as I say I like the opposite, and as much as I like to say that, I do like that, there are those certain experiences where it really just drives that point home. And it's just, amazing that you've got these feelings about something as big and serious as breast cancer. But I would still want to hear the option. What does it sound like with a man's voice on it? What does it sound like? Because we're just thinking about it, and until we hear it, we don't know. So just keep trying.
So to your point, though, there was 5 or 6 years ago, a man voiced a tampon commercial.
I remember, I never heard that spot, but I remember hearing about it. So was it was it tongue in cheek or was it serious?
Oh no, it was
Oh
serious.
God.
And in my mind, I'm building doors exist to create space for women to be heard in rooms that they've never been heard before. I don't want to take jobs away from anyone. I just want women to have the opportunity to be auditioned and heard. Because to your point, you never know until you hear the difference what you may or may not like. So I often give this example. I say, well, a man voiced a tampon commercial 5 or 6 years ago. I would never suggest that a woman voice an Old Spice commercial. I would never suggest a woman voice a Just for Men hair coloring kit commercial. There are some things that, yes, it makes total sense. Like tampons, like feminine care products.
Yeah. So
it's not necessary. It's not necessary.
I think the point really is that we're both making, and I think the way you think and the way I also think is that it's not anti anything else if you're pro this. Pro
Right?
this doesn't mean anti that. Pro this means let's boost it. Let's make sure that it's being heard and seen, and let's make sure that it's being amplified. But it doesn't mean that it's going to denigrate, take away from anything else that's on the other side. So, lifting it up doesn't mean sinking something else. It doesn't mean sinking something else. And the options would just perpetuate some of the forward momentum that we have with some of these advertising campaigns. And it would be like, okay, well, maybe not now, but when springtime hits and we've got this other thing in the works, maybe that's when we do this, because now I've heard this. So if I could put anything out there, it's just like, try things, listen to it, get it on video, put it to video, see how it plays before you just dismiss it. Just see how it plays. Yeah.
So I have 2 more questions for you. One, the last question is a standard question I ask all my guests. I'll get to that in a minute. But the next one I want you to answer as a dad, because I know you're a dad to 3 beautiful, beautiful young
Thank
ladies. So I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to ask you as a dad how that makes you feel.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, I could probably do an entire podcast, an hour long or more, of all the stories that have been shared with me from women around the world and women in male-dominated industries. And one of the stories goes like this. There was a Big Ten school. So for those listening who might not know, Ohio State, Michigan, those are like Big Ten schools.
Yeah,
right?
Iowa,
Nebraska. These are Division I, big sporting. We watch them on TV. We carve out time from out of our
in the
day.
heartland of the country, in the Midwest.
That's right.
Yep.
I am Ohio, heart of it all. That's where I'm from. And we wear their brands. It's a big deal, right? And college sports at the D1 level, especially the Big Ten, is big money. It's big business. Well, there was, and I won't name them, a Big Ten school that was on the lower end of that, right? So 7, 8, 9, 10. And they hired a marketing firm to come in, and a marketing analysis firm to come in and say, look, take a look at all of what we're doing. How can we get up to that OSU level? What can we do different in our marketing and our strategy and how we present ourselves? Like, what do we need to change internally so that we can get up a little higher in that Big Ten ranking? And so it was a middle-aged white man who was head of the firm. He and his crew came in for 3 months, did an analysis. They all meet in the conference room. The room is full. It's packed. And there's chairs along the table. There's chairs along the wall. In that room are 2 women. All the rest are men. This man sits down at the table, and the first words out of his mouth are, my team and I believe that the number one thing that you can do to advance the standings in the Big Ten is to remove the women that you have in director and head positions. They would be better serviced at home. They would be of more service at home.
At home?
This was said in a conference room at a Big Ten school less than 2 years ago, and to a room full of men and only 2 women. Those 2 women felt like if they stood up and said anything, they might lose their jobs. So not one man in that room, not one well-intended man challenged that middle-aged white man.
At
one.
home, but at home means not working. It doesn't mean at the home office. It means at their home.
Correct. He meant at home. Go home. go home.
Well,
They would be better served. They would be giving more if they were at home. So my question to you is, when you hear this story and you know it happened less than 2 years ago, you know that it happened in a room full of more than likely young executives. What does that make you think for the future, for your children, for your daughters in the workplace?
makes me more thankful that I work for a company like I do, that definitely doesn't do things that way. And also for them, they were all raised to be independent. I mean, my mom, my mother-in-law, very independent ladies, went to work outside of the home. We're not, those classic homemakers, independent. So everyone's independent in my household. I don't think they would stand for that. And I think my oldest would have the worst time holding back her thoughts and reacting to that right away. We talk about counting to 10. We talk about counting to 100 in my house. We talk about counting to 1,000 and 10,000 and all of that, because sometimes you have to, I live it myself. You have to take a second and not react, because what happens is when we're in an argument and I'm civil and I'm even with you and you're angry and you're cussing at me, or if I'm angry and I'm cussing at you, well, one of us has a point that's not getting across, and it's the one that's cussing and it's the one that's yelling. So she would have a hard time not being that cussing, yelling Tasmanian devil of what the hell are you talking? She would have a hard time not reacting to that right away. But counting to 10 or counting to 100, I would love to see what she would write about that, because she would be so eloquent and so amazing in whatever her takedown of that is that she would put on paper. I mean, she just would. And she's been in that situation a few times where we've talked about, just as a young woman being dismissed as a young woman. And she's fought back against it pretty good. And she says, if I'm in this room, my opinion's valuable. And if you don't want to hear my opinion, what am I doing here?
And as a dad, are you disappointed to hear that systems are in place like that?
To me, when you say that's 2 years ago, and that's why I had to ask you for clarification about the home versus the home office, because it's shocking that someone could say that they belong at home. I've never lived anywhere in this country where that was a normal thing. And I'm not throwing shade on anyone who lives their life that way. We all have our different ways.
Of course,
but if someone's already in that room with this person who said that, they've risen to that level. They've paid their dues. They're there for a reason. So to be that dismissive and to just say something like that, that means that that's the way that person really feels. That's that person's, take on the world. And is that 2025? To me, that's not 2025. That's not where we are right now. We are so far past that, to the point where everyone should be offended when they hear something like that. Man, woman, anyone should be offended when they hear something like that. Haven't we come to the point where, as a dad, I would feel like, hey, if you said that directly to my daughter, any one of them, like, we got issues, and I got personal issues with you now. But for them to hear it, I feel like they're well equipped to deal with it. But also, I feel like they shouldn't have to hear that. I feel like we're past that. Right. I feel like 2025, right. I feel like we're past that. We shouldn't have to hear that stuff. And for that to be tolerated in a room like that, we still have a lot of problems we need to work out. I mean, the people that have the power, that, everyone else fears because of, the power they hold over their livelihood. It's unfortunate that situation and that person is there. And for something like that to happen just 2 years ago, that's shocking to me. That is really shocking.
And I believe that, Jason, the more we uplift women's voices, the more confident we can make women in those kind of situations, the more stories we share and the more we encourage one another, the less that will happen. The more that we can educate well-intended men to be able to stand up in that room and say, hey there, wait a minute. You really don't mean that, right?
Yeah.
The more that we can empower one another and uplift each other's voices, the more our voices are heard, let's take it beyond just commercials and radio, right? I think the better we will all be served.
Yeah. Lifting up doesn't mean sinking someone else or putting someone else down. And if that's what it is, that's not truly lifting someone up. If you think you're lifting up someone by putting someone else down, that's not that you're not doing it right. You're doing it wrong.
Okay, Jason, here we go. Last question.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I ask all my guests this, and right now we have this series live. I just launched it recently. It's called Door to Success. And so I asked women around the world and young girls to share with me their stories of what their door to success looks like. And so I think it's very powerful. It's motivating. And I think that there's a lot of gratitude that can happen when we listen to what other people's vision of success is. So my question to you is, what does your door to success look like? When you open it, what do you see and how do you feel? So, for example, my door would be bedazzled. It would have lots of bright, sassy stuff on it, right? It would be very shiny and loud, of course. And when I walk in, I would have this feeling of ease, of happiness. I would feel complete freedom to be who I am and not be judged. I would see tons of women and young girls. I would see all the men in my life that are so supportive of me and what I do, and people like them. And I would have this almost feeling of lightness. So, what would your door look like? And when you walk through it, how would you feel? And use as many verbs and descriptors as possible, please.
I think my door has to have a big glass frame on it, big glass window, so that you can see in what's inside, and it's transparent, and it looks like it's more open and inviting to you, so that you know what's ahead of you. And that speaks to also doing your research in life, no matter who you are. Do your research, know what's coming up next, and then see it. But then open the door and go inside and see it even more clearly, be able to pick it up, touch it, interact with it, and be in a space where, you feel comfortable doing it. And I would say that nothing is, if it harms someone else, let's not do it. But everything else is like, it's unlimited. Let's go. Let's try it. Let's work it out. Let's see what works. Let's see if it fits and if it makes everyone happy. And if it doesn't make everyone happy, let's talk about how we can change it or we can get rid of it altogether. But yeah, like there's definitely a spot inside that room where like everyone should feel welcome. Everyone should feel comfortable. And, I'm serving anything you might want to, eat or drink.
Talk about it. Like what? Like what?
Sure.
Like what? Like what would
There's
you
an
serve?
old-fashioned bar over here, and then we have some mocktails over here if you don't have any alcohol. And there's lots of limes everywhere, and we have lots of of vodka and ginger beer, so we can make mules, and lots of ice. We never run out of ice. Yeah, and we got a straw if you want one, or you get a copper cup, or you get a glass, whatever you need. So yeah.
That's so funny because I never thought about what would be served in my room. And I just made a decision. It would be mac and cheese that is made of like homemade, not like the craft stuff, but like the homemade with the crunchy stuff on top. And I can't eat dairy. So it would be dairy that I could eat.
Oh yeah, you would need that. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be like this bar of all this different kind of homemade mac and cheese, but I could eat all of it and I wouldn't get
Oh
sick.
yeah, crawfish etouffee forever, and you wouldn't gain a pound. That would be mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
See?
Yeah.
Let's go. Thank you so much, Jason,
Oh, yeah.
for excuse me, I said Jay Sean. I need to say thank you so much, Jason Veazey, easy to say, for joining us and sharing your thoughts about voiceover, about as an actor, as a voice seeker. And if you like what you're hearing and seeing on the Building Doors podcast, please visit buymeacoffee.com/buildingdoors and show us some love. I like lattes. Oat milk, please. Yes, please.
Down there somewhere.
It's down there somewhere. Yeah, you'll see it. It's down there somewhere. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Love it, Christy. Thank you.
And until next time, let's build some doors. Thanks for listening to the Building Doors podcast. Want to hear more? Check out all our episodes at buildingdoorsvo.com/podcast and follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at buildingdoorsvo. We'd love to hear from you, so call us on our 24/7 hotline at 216-307-1917 and leave us a voicemail with your thoughts. Do you want to support the podcast? Well, we love coffee. Buy us a cup through the link in the description or at buildingdoorsvo.com. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep speaking up, and let's keep building doors together.